Hey everyone, I thought I'd do a bit of a video series in the lead up to my Adian set at Get Reloaded versus MioAs in October. Really excited about the entire event. Get Reloaded, superb headliners and amazing support DJs. But on the MioAs floor, I'll be launching my label plus also a new live event series. If you've been following me, or hopefully you have, over the last few years, I've been doing a mix series on MioAs, featuring sort of melodic Afro house and also the blues series, which is more the deeper progressive stuff. So we'll be launching on the day. Great support DJs, plus also a really great headliner in Try Lucid as well. So really excited about that. But back to Adian, which is my progressive house alias. I'll also be releasing a EP around that time as well, and you may be hearing a sneak preview in the background if I can get the video editing skills up to date there. But anyway, so back to Adian. I've got no idea how long and how this series is going to turn out. We're literally starting from scratch together. The idea was originally well, it was always the idea to do a completely producer set, so all my own music and my own remixes. But I thought, let's add some stress to the situation and try and do it live. So what I'm going to do over the next few months, and I don't know, we'll see how it goes, right? We'll work this out together, is work through the setup, how I translate the produced tracks into something that I can play live. It's not going to be exactly the same. The equipment I'm going to use, trials and tribulations. I've got no idea how that's all going to work out. But yeah, let's go on this journey together and have a bit of fun. Well, I hope anyway, along the way. So that's enough by way of introduction. What I'll do now is let me just show you the basic setup I have, and some ideas about how I'm going to be using it. So let's take a look. Okay, so let's have a look at what I'm going to be using. The heart of the live setup obviously will be my laptop running Logic, and specifically Logic Live Loops. Why I'm not using Ableton, some people may be asking. Well, I've just really never got into it. My background really, way back before I even started DJing, was playing keyboards in various bands, sort of late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. Yeah, that's a long time ago. But as I started to do more complex arrangements for songs, I would sequence some of the lines and when we played live, and then just run a sync track to the drummer. But that was all hardware based. And my original sequence of choice, weapon of choice back then, was a Roland MC50, which I'll try and find a picture on the web and paste it over now so you can have a look at it. Hopefully the editing will work there. And then sort of towards the late 90s moved over to Cubase, which then became sort of software based, and then mid 2000s moved over to Logic, and just stuck with Logic ever since. So maybe I'm just being a bit lazy, but yeah, let's use what we got. And I would say that Live Loops is a relatively late edition. I think it's been out for about 4 or 5 years now. I need to fact check that, but anyway, but essentially what it is you can take your produced track, and then you can create these little cells in a grid form. Sort of left to right are tracks, so whether that's drums or percussion or bass lines, and then you can create scenes, which are the vertical grids, where you can trigger as many cells as you've got in there, and the loops, and the loop will just run and run and run. So essentially what you're doing is setting up a complete song. It may be 4 or 5 vertical lines, and then just triggering them as you build up the song. So essentially live remixing, which I think is pretty exciting. I'll talk about how I'm going to control those, because no one wants to see someone clicking a mouse in a club anyway, so I'll get onto that. I've got a sound card at the back there that I'm going to be running, which will help manage sound and all those sorts of things. I need to check latency and those sorts of things, make sure it all runs well, because I may decide to use the inbuilt sound card there on the TR8S, which I'll come to in a moment. So yeah, so that's the main way of controlling the music, the sound card. I've got a very basic controller here, the Korg Nano Control 2, which is really, for me to flip between tracks on the laptop. So again, no mouse clicking. I can stop start here, and then for each track slider will correspond to one of the tracks in Logic, so I can control the volume. And at the moment I'm just limited to one sort of encoder here, which I may put a filter on or reverb or something, and that'll just be track by track. Seeing how it goes, I'm quite interested in the new launch control, Novation Launch Control Mark III, which gives much more features and potentially deeper control into Logic as well. We will see how that goes, right? And then coming on to how I'm going to be triggering the loops. This is the Novation Launchpad Pro Mark III, and essentially, as you can see, it's grid-based, which corresponds, well, not right now because it's just the basic template I've set up. And again, we're going to be filling this in as we go along, so you'll get to see how that builds up. But you'll see the grids align with the grids in Logic. So I will be able to trigger individual cells, and what's quite nice is the colors match eventually when I set it up. I can trigger, a complete scene. If you remember, that's the vertical. Or I could trigger a scene and then mute a few things before it kicks in, and then build up as we go. So that's the main sort of control there. I'll come onto the drums in a sec, but I just want to move over to keyboard because I will be playing some things live, at least 1 or 2 parts per track, and that could be a lead line. I could be triggering an arpeggio, maybe a pad or something like that, and then also be able to map these encoders to the cutoff filter or release or whatever it is to create tension within in tracks as well. Again, all live and using mod wheels and stuff like that to change and morph sounds as we go along. I may decide to switch that to an actual keyboard and then just reprogram the soft synths that I've got in Logic into that to get close to the lead sound, so that I can play them live here, and it also takes a bit of the load off Logic itself, because again, I've got no idea how Logic's going to cope with all of this, but we'll test it out as we go along. And then coming on to the drums, this is my trusty TR-8S, probably the great grandchild of the legendary TR-808, which, if you listen to hip hop, early 80s electro, Detroit techno, heavily infused. Now everyone knows the 808 kick. That's where this one came from. Obviously, a lot more features built in, but the TR-808 and 909 sounds in here are pretty much spot on to the original. So this is a beast. But anyway, coming back to the setup, the intention here is to have the drums running all the time, and I'll have up to 8 different patterns that I could use. Essentially, I'll have a full drum kit running, so the kicks all the way through to toms and hi-hats and things like that. I may use these last 2 channels for a continuous snare rise loop or kick loop, and I can just bring them in and out of the track as I need them. But essentially, yeah, so I'll have all the drums running through here. I've got individual control over the loudness, the volume. I can mute tracks as well. I can maybe even change the pattern on the fly. I may, I haven't hooked up the sound yet, but essentially what I can do is have variations of kicks. I can have different drum sounds as well. So if you don't want to hear the same kick all the way through an entire hour-and-a-half set, so I may change that. I've also got control over master effects, so a filter, high pass or low pass filter to bring the drums in and out. Maybe even reverb to build tension within a build-up. And you can do things like on the spot little triplet fills and stuff like that. So again, could probably spend the whole hour-and-a-half just making music on that. But yeah, so that's the intention. And like I said as well, I may decide to use its internal sound card. We'll see how it goes. So that's it really. That's the initial view of the setup. Things may change slightly as we go along, and we'll discover that as we go along together. And in following or subsequent episodes of this series, I will do deep dives into individual things and how I build up a track, how I will use it, all those kinds of things. So hopefully, if it's not entertaining, maybe it's educational. I don't know. We'll see how we go. Okay, until next time.